Hello. Did you know that the simplest thing to realize is who you are? Simply because you are. And it's a matter of knowing this moment to be just the aliveness of your being, the very energy of your being. Okay, let's make it very, very simple. The fact that you know you exist, and you can only exist now, is all the truth that you'll ever need to know the truth of your being. It's as simple as that. Let me explain something very simple. In order for creation to take place, that is, to experience the world as we know it, opposites have to take place, called duality. Now, opposites mean this, that in order for something to appear real, it has to have an opposite. For example, my face has to have an opposite, the back of it. A space called up must have a down. So you see, everything, in order for it to exist, has to have an opposite. Now, in the same way that a human being has two dualistic opposites, human and being. The human is a becoming process. That is, it's always seeking, wanting, needing, craving, yearning, hoping, desiring, the need to improve, the need to progress, the need to get someplace, always going on. And when people in retrospect, they say, for the last 20 years I've been trying to improve, but I'm still the same. And so this is it. We forget that the human is an ongoing process but never gets any place because it's a circular motion. Why is it like this? Because through the human we mirror the being. The being is. It is not a place, it is not a locality, it is very subjective thing. It is the now itself of you. There is never a time when the being was not. There's never a time when the being will not be. In fact, you can't even remember not being. It's not possible. Even in your deepest sleep, you're still aware. You may not be aware of it consciously. But when you wake up, you say, I had a good sleep. You're always there. But who is there? The you that is you is now, this moment, this being. This being had no beginning and no end. It's unborn. That is our glory, that is the beauty. If you know you're a human being, what else do you need to know? Truly. Now the whole process of life is to integrate the human and the being, to bring them together. Now you might say, but how am I going to do that when one is a becoming process and the other one is a being? How do I join them together? By realizing that all the human is ever doing is seeking the being, and is seeking it according to its own level of awareness. If it happens to be physical, then it wants material things, it wants physical contact. If it's mental, then it wants communication, verbal, knowledge. You see? So it doesn't matter. If it's emotional, then it wants that security, that safety, that knowing, that belonging, that joining. And but at the same time, all it ever wants is the being. Because it is the being that expresses through the human. Even now, as you hear Burt talking, and Burt is a name given to this form, it is the being that is talking. And similarly with you, you think you're hearing me. If you're hearing me with your thoughts, with your past, then you're not really listening. But if right now you are listening and you can feel something resonating in you, how simple and obvious this is. Who is it that is listening? It is the being recognizing itself. That is the beautiful thing. But you see, you need the human in order to recognize the being. And that's the beauty of life. We have been given this gift. Yes, this human part is ego. It is filled with fear, the instinct of survival. Yes, of course. It is often sad, depressed, angry, frustrated, fearful for everything. It even sabotages its own need for love. But that's part of the game. Once you see that you are already the being, and you begin to see how the human is always seeking the being, and the being always is, that's how you integrate them. And then it's okay to be what you are. You can have a lot of so-called faults, you make many mistakes, but when you know you are this being, you know it beyond a shadow of a doubt, then you've got peace of mind. But remember, realization is not something that you realize. Let me phrase that because it sounded a little bit too paradoxical here. See, we think of realization as something that we're going to get, something that we're going to attain. I realized it. But realization really is not that at all. Realization is putting yourself in a place where you listen, where you can be very still and look and see the obviousness of your own being. Even the listening, the seeing, the experiencing, it's all done by being. It's just consciousness. See? But the very consciousness itself is the world and everybody in it. The being that you specifically are is called pure awareness. I'm just aware. From that awareness, I become aware of this, aware of this, aware of this. I create this, I create that. And that's called consciousness. Consciousness combines it all. The awareness of consciousness. Now, consciousness contains thoughts, contains beliefs, contains hopes, fears, desires, the past, the future, contains it all. Awareness is aware. It can be aware of this consciousness, but it itself remains the center of being, the very nucleus of being. The greatest block to the realization of the center that we are, this being that we are, is the fact that we identify so much with the human part. We even hate the hate. We get angry, and then we're angry for being angry, and then we feel guilty, and then we feel guilty for feeling guilty. And then we fear something, and then we become afraid that if I get afraid, I'm going to be more afraid, and then I'm going to be afraid that I'm going to be afraid. You see, it's a chain reaction. This is part of the human part. But stop. Take a deep breath. And know that the being is being. To be. To relax. To respond to the moment and to be aware. And it is this that brings everything into perspective, into balance, into equality. And this is when you join the human and the being together. This is your glory. It's very simple to recognize that you exist, and you can only exist now. The past is gone, the future is not yet. But every moment that you live, stop. I am living, and it's always now. Because you can only live now, which means that you can live eternally. Because now never ends. If you can see the timelessness, non-locality of your being, and it's always you, you have realized your true nature. Thank you for listening.